Welcome to Unit 3 of Lesson 6, Making a Difference. Have you ever done something for someone who could never pay you back? Have you ever made an anonymous donation or a kind gesture that no one will ever know of? We already know that from the beginning of this lesson that practicing gratitude can have a significant positive impact on our life. And furthermore, according to a 2013 study, doing good actually decreases stress and it increases our life expectancy. It really makes us feel better. Some of the results of the various studies are astounding on the effects of doing good. Findings show that subjects who provided tangible assistance to friends or family members, as simple as running errands for them or helping with childcare, they reported less stressful events and consequently had reduced mortality. In other words, helping others actually reduces our mortality specifically by buffering that association between stress and mortality. So we know the more stress we have, the more of an impact it can have on our life and the longevity of our life. So by doing good, it actually decreases stress and increases our mortality. In a 2010 study, it was found that the less money that people give away, the higher their cortisol levels, which is that body's main stress hormone. And when we do good, our brain releases that endorphins. And we talked about this in another lesson. That's that happy chemical. So doing good literally makes us feel better. Not only that, after extensive review of 40 different studies on the effects of volunteering on general health and happiness, the BMC Public Health Journal concluded that volunteering is also good for our mental health, which makes sense. So the review found that along with improved well-being and life satisfaction, longevity, volunteering actually was also linked to a decrease in depression. So you can see there's just so much good that comes from doing good for others. Not only does it help others, but it helps ourselves. I recall a time I was preparing a speech for an annual charity auction dinner, and I happened to be on a call with one of my mentors, and I mentioned that I always have such a difficult time asking people to donate money. And he said, Tammy, why are you being so selfish? And I said, well, I think you're missing the point. I'm trying to help. I'm just struggling with the ask. And then he said it again. Why are you being so selfish? He said, how does it make you feel to know that you have a direct impact on the lives of others when you're helping others? And I said, well, it's, one of the most rewarding feelings in the world, really. And he said, well, why would you not want to share that? Why wouldn't you want to give others the opportunity to feel this feeling for themselves? Think about the change that's taken place within you, he said, and how much your life has been enriched. And think about how others can also enrich their lives by giving. So you're not actually asking them for anything. You're actually giving them the opportunity to gain in so many ways, spiritually, emotionally, and physically, as we've learned. And it was really one of those aha moments for me because he was right. Earning money may contribute to a life of success, but giving and contributing really goes to creating a life of significance. And who doesn't want to live a life of significance? So clearly, I needed to stop being so selfish. And it was that much easier to do the ask that night at the charity auction. So now's a perfect time actually to share a little bit more with you about the charity that I just mentioned. So, one of my favorite things about people is learning about their story. We all have one. Sometimes it's a love story. Other times it could be a comedy, a little drama may sneak in here and there. But oftentimes it can be a heartbreaking story. And one of the most gratifying things that we can do as human beings is to help others through the heartbreaking chapters of their lives. When I started my business in 2008, there were so many things that I wasn't sure of. But one thing I did know for certain was that I had been truly blessed in my life. And I firmly believe as a society that we should give back whenever and wherever possible. whether it's volunteering in the community, paying it forward, or donating money to support a cause. So I recruited my 2 children. They were 11 and 8 at the time, and we went to work to find a corporate charity that we would call our own. So after a bunch of research, we chose the Jennifer Ashley Children's Charity. The acronym for that is JACC. And we weren't familiar with them at the time. So we recognized that JACC was different from some of the other charities that we were looking at for a number of reasons. But what we really loved about it was the fact that they seemed to kind of fill this void, a gap, and really take care of families who otherwise kind of fall through the cracks from a financial perspective. So JACC actually offers financial assistance to families with seriously ill children. And, we know that children need things and wishes and items to, make their lives more comfortable when they're ill, but that illness inevitably brings along serious financial strain. One or both parents may have to leave their jobs to care for their child, resulting in much needed medication, treatment, or even necessities of life becoming out of financial reach for them. And by financially assisting, JACC is really helping to facilitate a new normal for these wonderful families. So working closely over the years with the phenomenal people associated with JACC really only went to further validate that this is truly a remarkable charity. So from the founder, Norm himself, to the families that we help, gratefulness and gratitude never, ever, ever go unnoticed. And it gave us great pleasure to be able to corporately sponsor the charity for the time that I owned the business over the 8 years. And now I am immensely grateful to be part of their board of directors. So I continue to be involved in the charity on a day-to-day basis. So I want to share with you the story about the remarkable man behind the charity. He is a great mentor of mine, a selfless philanthropist with the purest of hearts, and an inspiration to so many people, Norman Clements. Now, I couldn't even begin to give Norm justice in my own words, so I was really happy to share an excerpt of Norm's biography that was written by his niece, Karina. So Karina shares that there are those of us who allow circumstances to sour and harden them, and others face those difficult times and really grow into better people. And Norm's mom was unexpectedly left a young widow and alone to care for her 5 children. And they ranged in age at the time from 9 months old to Norm, who was 17, the eldest. And she did everything possible to keep that family together. So this environment of really sticking together through the tough times and the hard work, coupled in they were very religious family, really shaped Norm's character and his life. So after his father's death, Norm shouldered the responsibility of sorting through closing down his dad's business. And as the oldest sibling, really had to take accountability for being a provider for the family. So he worked, crazy long hours at 17 years old while going to school. And he was never one to sit around and wait for opportunity to materialize. He went out there and made them happen. So when he was young, he started driving from school to school, selling gym clothing out of the trunk of his old car. And this venture grew into 37 years of retail success, successful business, where he was the president and operated these successful businesses throughout all of Southern Ontario. So being an owner and president of a successful business, as well as the co-owner of the greatest pacer harness racing horse, so he was into racing horses, it never went to Norm's head. He could still be seen helping out at the cash at a 60-hour sale, or heard saying something nice or kind to the driver or trainer. He was never one to take glory for himself. So Norman and his siblings really inherited his mother's desire to help others. 3 of her children actually went on to become missionaries and went on to foreign countries, while Norm and his brother dedicated themselves to the business to really wholeheartedly support their siblings as they were away. So Norm's soft heart for others, especially the underdog, really took root in his childhood, and it never ever faded. So, a common sight in his home has always been extra plates at the table, or someone, sleeping on the couch. He's always willing to give a dropout a job, a recovering alcoholic a helping hand, and a needy single mom help with her rent. So when his baby granddaughter was born, on his birthday, by the way, she died 6 months later from spinal muscular atrophy. And her name was Jennifer Ashley. And it really spurred Norm to start the Jennifer Ashley Children's Charity. So, seeing so many families in dire need while spending so many hours at the hospital with his own granddaughter really spurred him to launch this charity. So since 1990, they've helped thousands of families who needed a hand through tough times dealing with seriously ill children with simple necessities. So, but which often get overlooked, like providing transportation to medical appointments, or a few hours of respite care, or money to buy fresh fruit or vegetables, really, or assistance for chemotherapy. Really anything where the family was in need of that financial assistance. So the charity really is a reflection of Norm's heart. And, it's not about big flashy donations. It's all about lightening a burden. It's about bringing a safety net to help someone who's going through really tough times. So for Norm and his charity, these families have names, they have faces, they have stories and dreams. They are real people. He is truly an inspiration. So, Norm's a man of many values and integrity and resilience. So one day before a board meeting, Norm and I sat down so I could interview him for my book. And, his words and stories that he was telling me were so captivating that a lot of times I forgot to, I stopped writing because I was so captivated by what he was telling me. And, as we know from the beautifully written bio that I just shared with that Karina wrote, in addition to philanthropist, Norm was a businessman. And he had a lot of successful times during his business career. But Norm also experienced horrible times as the company faced bankruptcy, with over 800 people relying on him to provide for them and their families a livelihood. And Norm was devastated. This took a significant toll on his mental well-being, as he explained to me. And he couldn't get out of bed for days. So, he worked through this funk with daily devotions and inspirational messages. And he shared that, he shared with me that when one of these messages would really hit him in the heart, that's what would give him the motivation to move forward. So, he joked with me, the only time you become a loser is when you refuse to get out of bed. So you have very little control in life, but you always have control over how to deal with these things, as we talked about in The Power of Choice. And this is something else that Norm also shared. And he also said that true friends are important in life. So Norm explained when he was going through this really difficult time, he had a couple of very wealthy friends, neither of them who ever offered a helping hand at all. And the help that he actually ultimately ended up receiving came from someone that he only met once in passing. So obviously, this man was someone with a very true and pure heart, and really believed in the philosophy and mentality of giveness and helping others. So, Norm's point, following that experience was around just being your best you at any given time, and being someone, a person who offers encouragement to others. And that's what feeds into Norm being his best self. And he says, encouragement can be anything. It doesn't have to be money. It can be a cup of coffee. It can be a kind word, or doing a favor for someone without them ever knowing it. So Norm also goes to Bolivia every year for the sole purpose of helping his niece Karina, who actually lives in Bolivia and helps with the community. And he does this every year. And he says he goes for selfish reasons, because he gets so much joy out of bringing happiness to others. Really to see the smiles on their faces when he's cooking for the community. And, that's really his motivation to go back year after year. And the same goes for the Jack Country Barbecue, which is an annual event that's held at his farm in Uxbridge, Ontario, Canada, every year. And this is it's a day where all Jack families, so all of the children who have been recipient of funds through the charity, the families come together with their children, the donors, the volunteers, the board, all get together to celebrate Jack Kids. And the property is set up with all these different activities like face painting and fishing and petting zoos and dancing and so much more. There's food, fun, music, and just smiles all day long. And Norm spends his day transporting families in the Jack trolley. So he actually has this red trolley bus that takes the families from the top of the hill where everybody parks all the way down to the festivities at the bottom of the property. And he does this on a loop all day. And, when you ask Norm why are you driving the bus all day? And he says, he does it because he loves to see the smiles on the kids' faces as they board that trolley, because they are so excited in, anticipation for all the fun that they're about to have. And I have to admit, I look forward to the event every year myself for the exact same reason. It's one of my favorite events of the year. So Norm describes his mother as his mentor and best friend. And if he ever walked into the house kind of like with a big head or inflated ego, she would shrink it, boy. She would knock him down a peg. And when he was hurting or sad or needed to be, inflated, she would do just that for him as well. So her words of wisdom to Norm included things such as, take one day at a time and do one nice thing a day for someone else. And also be responsible for what you do, not what other people do. So when I asked Norm what he does to be his best self, he says he always tries to look for the good in people, and find something nice to say. And he says he really chooses his words wisely. If something he's about to say may come across as spiteful or may hurt someone's feelings, he chooses not to say it. So when things get a little tough, Norm says he really goes for a walk to clear his head, or a drive, or, something that will clear his head. He says that sometimes we get into a box and we don't know how to get out of it. And we really need to create the space in our heads to allow us to find the clarity that we need in order to move forward. So I really wanted to share the story, Norm's story, with you, because he is such a truly remarkable man, and he has so much wealth of knowledge to share. And I'm just so happy that and grateful that I'm a part of his life through the charity, and that he shared these things with me so I could in turn share them with you. And that brings us to the end of lesson 6. Gratitude's the new attitude. And with that, I will leave you with this Zig Ziglar quote. The more you are grateful for what you have, the more you will have to be grateful for. I look forward to seeing you in our next and final lesson, Be Devilishly Selfish While Loving Others. Can't wait to see you there.